mode.
Welcome to the webinar. This is number 9 in the Financial Abuse Awareness series. My name is Bill Mitchell. This series is part of the Financial Protections Project co-designed by the Queensland Government, Caxton Legal Centre and Townsville Community Law. The series is an online continuing professional development program that aims to raise financial industry awareness about financial abuse of older persons. Before we begin, we acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and we pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. This presentation is about what financial abuse looks like. The slides are not read verbatim but paraphrased for emphasis. They are designed to be standalone, readable modules and contain references for deeper learning. So let's begin. Before we begin this module, let's take a moment to think about this statement from Taylor. Think about the statement from Rita. I know for a fact my brother robbed my mother blind, but my mother thought the sun shone out of his backside. But there is nothing you can do about it. As far as she was concerned, she wasn't being abused. He was coming to visit her. Understanding what financial abuse looks like is the first step in detection and prevention. Understanding what financial abuse looks like improves the chances of detection and opportunities for reactive actions to intervene when financial abuse is happening, or proactive and preventative actions where an older person is at risk. On the right-hand side, you can see the learning outcomes from participating in this series. The Royal Commission into Misconduct in the Banking, Superannuation and Financial Services industry has stated that consumers of financial services cannot expect to be insulated from loss, but they can be expected to be treated fairly and honestly. Allowing financial abuse to happen runs counter to these expectations. Developing an understanding of how the financial services industry contributes to financial abuse is directly relevant to the ethical duties of financial advisors. Here's a range of things that financial abuse looks like. Take a time to read these examples. Here's some more examples of what financial abuse looks like. The Royal Commission into Financial Services identified that older persons can be affected by financial abuse, and that included irresponsible lending practices, emotional lending, a failure to ensure older persons have independent advice, a failure to identify actions by attorneys that were not in the interests of older persons, and taking enforcement action that impacted on older persons' welfare, assets and housing. The Banking Industry Association has industry guidelines that suggest that financial abuse can include stealing, forging, using money for purposes other than what was wanted, cashing in an older person's cheque or payments, deceiving, coercing or unduly influencing an older person, pressuring or tricking or threatening an older person into making changes to their will. And it goes on. Take the time to read those examples given by the ABA. These examples from the ABA are given from real-life experience on banking and financial services industry. They also come from a range of cases that have been heard by bodies such as AFCA, where they've identified red flags or instances where elder abuse and financial abuse particularly is happening. The CPA has some great examples for accountants, and Seniors Rights Victoria have helped to catalogue a range of case studies. This is a great reference guide and a great resource to have a look at later on if you're an accountant, and it gives lots of good examples of when financial abuse can occur. Before we leave this webinar, have a think about what financial abuse might look like in your industry or your profession or occupation. Are there any key examples that can be foreseen and avoided? Are there any relevant industry guidelines that exist that need to be considered or implemented by your business or your workplace? Do those guidelines need adjustment in your setting? And what is the outcome of failing to consider and implement guidelines? Thanks for listening to this webinar series. Feel free to download the PDF file for future reference. The next module in the series is Key Decision-Making Areas. Thanks for joining us.